Hey, what's up? I'm Yash.
I'm Mason. We're both juniors at the Miami Valley
He
School.
totally just stole my thunder. Yep.
Yes, I did. But
I identify as a 16-year-old brown male. Male, ladies. My number's down below. Yeah, we're doing an Apush project.
for Mr. Squires.
What is it about? Oh, yeah.
And we're comparing sports, which were hockey and football, to different wars in American history, most particularly the American Revolution and the Civil War. So for our Apush project, we decided to use hockey as one of our examples. This is the first one where the British government is represented by the hockey stick and their power is represented by the hockey puck, which shows the acts that the British government tried to impose on the colonists. The colonists are represented through the net, and the poster board on them will show their ideals. These ideals are as follows: no taxation without representation, the sons and daughters of liberty, radical Whig ideals, autonomy, and republicanism ideals. So the first one is the intolerable acts, which is being shot through radical Whig ideals. Then the second one is the Sugar Act, which is the Stamp Act, which is going through the Sons and Daughters of Liberty. The Sugar Act goes through autonomy, and the Declaratory Act goes... Oh, that was a nice shot.
Oh, that was a good shot.
The Declaratory Act goes through republicanism
bottom right.
ideals.
Oh, bottom right. That was a dinger. Yeah, republicanism ideals.
Then the last one is the Townshend Act,
Isn't that middle?
which goes through no taxation without representation,
top
which
left.
is top left.
Which is a beautiful shot. That is very, very slow. And
For
it's
some
not-
reason, it's like an extra slow motion. Oh, wait.
Oh, right through the hole.
crossbar. Right below
Literally
crossbar.
right through the hole.
Okay, so you guys just saw the hockey videos and kind of how that sort of related to the Revolutionary War, sort of. So we'll just take a couple minutes because we wanted to give a couple more details about each act and sort of how that all played out. So we'll start with the Intolerable Act because that was the first one. And basically that act, it restricted the rights of American people through the British government. And this was shot through the radical Whigs' ideals because the Whigs believed that the rights of, Americans should not be restricted by any external powers, aka the British government. So the Brits imposing this act on Americans was one of the sticks. Get it? Hockey stick, British with a hockey stick. Yeah, puns. Anyways, one of the sticks that led to the kindling of the American Revolution. Secondly, we had the Stamp Act, which was a tax on stamps. So pretty self-explanatory. Now, this was heavily imposed on the Sons and Daughters of Liberty, which is why we shot through them. But because the Sons and Daughters of Liberty were really resisting towards it, the Stamp Act was repealed. The Sugar Act was the third act, and that was a tax on sugar. And we shot that through autonomy. I hope I said that right, but if I didn't, please correct me. I'm just going to say autonomy because that's all I know. And they shot it through autonomy because American people didn't believe that they should have to listen to the British government. And they wanted to self-govern themselves. And basically, the British got revolted against. The fourth act was the declaratory, whatever. But that act. And it said that Brits could assert themselves over America or Americans under any circumstance. It's kind of rigged, but that's what it was. And we shot that through republicanism because Republicans back then believed in popular sovereignty, which is basically like self-rule almost. And they didn't believe that, the Brits should have any power over American citizens. The final act was the Townshend Act, or Townshend, you know. And that was basically just a bunch of little taxes that went against, like, taxation without representation. And Americans did not like the idea of all these little taxes because, first of all, it went against taxation without representation. And that basically is if you're taxing someone, it's basically like you have to have a valid reason almost. And then, secondly, they thought, they should be allowed to self-govern themselves and they should be allowed to impose their own taxes. And they didn't like the idea, again, of an external government ruling over them. Whoa. So as you can see, there's like a common theme between all these acts. And it's like the idea of self-government and basically external rule of the Brits over the Americans. And we can see that America wasn't a huge fan of that. But overall, this was a misstep in the leadership of Britain because every act, like despite size and power, just kept like fueling the fire in the colonies, which basically then led to the revolution.
So, on to football. Population is one of the advantages of the North. So, this is represented through the gloves that Yash is wearing being showing that it's an advantage, along with a actually good football. This is showing it's an advantage. So, Yash again is the North, and wealth is another one. So, the North has a lot more wealth than the South, and this helps them a lot in the war. So, they also had a lot better transportation.
Because railways.
Yes, and that helped them get stuff across so much faster than the South. So, another one of their advantages was control of the sea. They had so much power in the sea that the South could not even compete with them for that. And, the South had no way of getting any help through that.
The fact that I'm catching these is impressive enough. You guys should be proud of me.
So, industry, they obviously produced, 3/4 of everything. And they had a lot more weapons, they had a lot more factories, they had a lot more wealth because of those industries, and that helped them a lot in the war.
It's a big... Okay. I almost ran into a tree.
Yeah, it's
You almost made me run into a tree.
It was only 5 times.
Shut the...
So, one of the final advantages was foreign relations. The North had a lot better foreign relations with other countries than the South did. And this helped them get foreign aid. A lot more immigrants fought for the North than the South.
And boom. I caught it. Again! In your face!
So on to the South, their advantages were better leadership. Though the North possessed a lot of advantages, the South had much better leadership. And they're actually more notable than the North, and they're covered a lot more in history. So another one is they actually had no need to win the war. They could not win the war and still keep their independence as the Confederacy. So they didn't even need to beat the North at all.
That's fair.
So also they had more morale in the beginning, especially. They wanted to keep themselves. They were unified. They just split. They were going off of that. And they were basically riding a high from splitting off the Union. They were like, yes, we can do this. We can beat the North.
Yeah, okay.
So, also, they, off of no need to win the war, they were fighting a defensive battle. They didn't have to leave the South. They didn't have to go anywhere. They could just sit at home and fight off the North indefinitely.
That's a catch.
Although it wasn't indefinite because
That's
the
a good
North could
catch.
outlast them.
That is a good catch.
It was also a good throw.
Yeah, that was a decent throw.
Alright, so on to disadvantages. We are using Vaseline to make it much harder to catch. Yash can attest to that. And
Yeah,
a
it
bad,
sucked.
ratty ball. And yet Yash has no gloves, and he's trying to catch it.
So this South disadvantage was economy.
Yes.
They had literally no money.
Yeah. They couldn't outlast the North even if they wanted to. So the next one is sea control. Again, like the North advantage, they could not, go around. They could not try anything. This also tied into foreign relations. And then the next one is
North.
the North had to fight an offensive battle, and the disadvantage part is also represented through the Vaseline and the bad ball. No gloves. It was also really cold outside, so Yash was kind of freezing.
Yeah, well, actually, I can't say that on recording. Let's just say the lower half of my body was very cold.
Yeah, but they had to fight an offensive battle and actually go into the North. And they also did not have the best leadership. Like, you don't hear about very many Northern generals. Like, that's not something you hear about in history books. Like, that's not any part of why they won. And that's actually one of the advantages for the South and why they had a chance of winning.
It's very slow-mo. Here
Nice
we go.
spiral.
That's actually a pretty decent spiral because that ball was actually a piece of shit. It was horrible to catch.
Yeah. So, another disadvantage for the North was not that much reason. Like, yeah, they wanted to keep the Union all together, but it's not like they were trying to basically fight for their independence again. They were trying to reclaim the South because they thought that slavery was not good. They wanted to preserve the Union. They thought their way of life was better and superior and better for everyone than the South's.
I can't believe I missed that.
So, another disadvantage was that the Northern people were not used to fighting. The people in the South were a lot more used to being out, to being, to working. They had to fight a lot because, in the earlier days, they had to fight for their territory. So this is one of the disadvantages that the North had, that they were not used to fighting. And this was overcome later, but it was still a disadvantage.
You just saw all our videos of us comparing sports to the wars and what caused the wars, sort of. Something like that. But now, we're just going to relate first the war to war, so the Revolutionary War to the Civil War. Then we'll relate both the sports to each other, hockey and football. And then we'll do the Revolutionary War in hockey, and then the Civil War in football.
So, first of all, the two wars. Obviously, they're very similar. They were both very influential on American culture, on American history. One of them, the American Revolution, won the American people their independence in 1783. And the Civil War brought more equal rights. It started off like black rights, women's rights, gay and lesbian rights, all sorts of different equalities. But they were also different because obviously they occurred in different time periods. One of them was within the American people, which actually made it a lot worse. Like, there was a death toll that was much, much, much higher. There was more drive for both the North and the South, and a lot more people contributed to the war than in the American Revolution.
Words.
Sorry.
They exist.
Yeah.
Good job.
Next, between football and hockey.
I got this one.
Okay.
Actually, I know nothing about hockey, but that's okay. I know a little bit. In hockey, I don't even know how many people you have on the field. Ring it once.
Five people and a goalie.
5 people, so 6. Okay. Okay, look, we'll not talk about the technicalities. Not important. Important part is, both of them are team sport. Do both of them, yeah, so football, obviously, you have your QB who's kind of, on field. He's the main guy who runs all the plays.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the goalie for hockey. Like, the goalie is always telling people what to do, making sure they're in their positions, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Yeah, so that's similarity. Also, teamwork is very important in both sports. So you have to be listening to not just your leader, but everybody else, because everybody is a key part to the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm saying, but that's okay. Anything else?
Obviously, hockey is played on ice, so it's a little more
Shut the
difficult.
hell. Oh my damn.
But, also, the main objective of both of them is to compete with your team and to win. So this is very, very, very similar to war. Though in war, people actually die, the goalies and the QBs are like the generals. They're the people giving orders, then everyone else is the soldiers or whoever. And you have to be able to rely on the person standing next to you, every other person in the army, to be able to do well. And you definitely want to win the war, you want to win your independence, you want to fight for your rights. So that's one of the reasons why we did sports and wars, because they're very, very, very similar.
This kid glued my arm earlier. I got glue all on my arm hair.
It was a glue stick.
It's still glue. Oh my damn. Anyways, not important. Well, actually, we just did everything, didn't we?
Think so?
Sweet. In conclusion,
We were doing this project because most people think that history's boring, that it doesn't really matter.
I think history's boring.
Of course you do. But we decided to relate it to something that not everyone, but a lot of people enjoy, which is sports. Because, like, if you study history, like, you'll be able to learn, which a lot of people don't. You'll be able to, like, do better in the future. And also, we did the American Revolution and the Civil War because those are the two defining moments in our country's past. The American Revolution was when we won our independence. It's when we first started to figure out who we were. And the Civil War was about equality and civil rights, which obviously came from the Civil War. And it also started women's rights, black rights, gay rights, which are still going on today, and these are all, like, defining us constantly. And if we look back at those, we'll be able to make our future society a lot better than it is today.